Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we talk to agency owner-directors and learn more about what makes them tick. From the things that make them similar to the things they'd rather have known sooner, where they've had success and where they've learned some hard lessons. All will be revealed with your host, Chris Simmons, the agency coach, and he'll be talking to a different awesome agency person in each episode, asking them 4 questions and seeing where the conversation takes us over the next 25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. And on the podcast today, we've got John Payne again. How are you doing, John?
I'm good, thank you, Chris. How are you?
Really good, really good. I just made you nervous before we started recording, so I'm really hoping to keep pushing on that a little bit to see what happens. So, John, very quickly before we kick off, for anyone who's been really naughty and not listened to season 1 and missed your fantastic first episode, can you just give everyone a reminder of who you are and who Noisy Little Monkey are?
Yes. So, Noisy Little Monkey are, well, we've changed slightly, actually. So we are an SEO and HubSpot consultancy.
Ooh, yeah. That's a big change.
Yeah, it is a big change. Specializing obviously in acquiring traffic, acquiring traffic and leads using SEO, and we've got some partners in content and PPC as well, and then nurturing and converting those leads into customers. Using HubSpot and doing sales training.
Cool. So, who are you?
Oh, yeah, I'm John Payne. I am the co-founder, along with the marvellous Nicola Payne, my wife and managing director. And yeah, we founded the business 14 years ago. And yeah, we've had some ups and downs. I think last time I talked to you, we were thought we were in a pretty serious down. Then it turned out we were in the middle of a very serious down. And we feel like we've hit the bottom and are bouncing up.
At the right time as well, because now's the time to double down on lead gen, SEO and things like that. And I think it sounds like a really good decision to go further into SEO and the HubSpot stuff for sure, especially with the prove that you can do it kind of need right now from a value point of view. Tell a client we can do X, well, you can prove it now because you've got systems behind it all. So what's been some of the major things that have happened in the last year within the agency? What have you done that you've adapted to?
So one of the things that probably had been an underlying problem for a couple of years is our content department. That's a rather grand name for a business of about 16 people. But our content team were really being carried by the SEO and HubSpot side of the business. So between SEO and HubSpot, they were making about 80-90% of the revenue, and content, while it was fun, wasn't making much money. Anything that came in that was content always had a big SEO element, or a HubSpot setup element. So that's that's the key change that we've made, is we've gone through the pain of getting rid of some of our very good friends, people who've been with us for 11 years on a couple of occasions, getting rid of some of our very good friends when their role was not really making business any money. In fact, it was losing the business money.
Yeah, I know from experience how sad that can be. It's hard personally. It's also hard professionally as well to sort of square the circle of, we're here as a team, and then you have to make decisions. But one thing I always remind the agency leaders that I work with is, you've got to look at it. It is a business, and the continuity of the business relies on making money. And if there's things that are not making money or make money less valuable, then you have to make a change, because there's more people that you need to keep in post and pay their bills for, and all that sort of stuff. So just holding on sometimes does more damage. And it's really, it sounds awful to sort of look at it from a you can't afford it, you've got to get rid of it, or it's costing more money than we want it to make. But it's still, it can be painful regardless, because you're dealing with people, and like you say, friends that you've had, that's happened to. It sounds like you say, doing the pivot has had some good yield from it already, which is nice. And seeing you with a smile means that something good's happened, I'm hoping. You did an event last year, I think. Was it May last year? Almost a year ago.
I
can't remember when it was now.
I can't remember. I think it was April. Yeah, probably April. April, May. Digital Gaggle.
That was it.
Our marketing meetup for marketers and that kind of stuff across the Southwest. Went really well, actually. In fact, it made money, which was great. We don't do it to make money.
Yeah.
But it was like a small retained client jumping on board and paying us all at once.
That's awesome.
Yeah, amazing. Which was great. It enabled us to give for the next one, we'll give a slightly superior experience, which is slightly improved experience. The experience is already pretty damn good, but it is not stuff that's useful.
I've got a theory with events, that the events that go into them with the perspective that they have to make money, aka a business that is a business for events, they often you often do we'll save a few quid here or make a few quid there, which sacrifices something along the way. Whereas if you look at it from this just shouldn't cost us too much money, or it shouldn't cost us any money, then you make decisions that means you get good speakers, you get good hospitality, good venue, good food, etc., all that sort of stuff. And then that means everyone has a great time. And if you do make a couple of quid, you can use that to reinvest and make it better the next time, and so on and so forth. And it's a really nice way of doing it. And as soon as you start thinking, how can we make more money out of this? You're going down the wrong track.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and anybody who knows us knows that we set the business up because we wanted to share knowledge as much as anything. We wanted people to be able to, when we were in the deep dark days of SEOs, we wanted to stop bad SEOs doing bad work by encouraging people to learn how to do stuff better, learn how to do it in-house, or at least use a better agency. And by teaching them how to do it in-house, often they chose us as the agency because they could see the workings of how we worked.
Yeah.
And we're doing that. Funnily enough, that works with HubSpot as well. I thought, actually, HubSpot, big software company, and actually a really sharing organization, they're going to be really good at choosing partners who do that. Of course, they're just they're a software sales company, so they sell shift software. So we fix a lot of broken installs because it goes wrong. But we've given away all of this knowledge. So it's working really well, and we'll never try and make money from the events unless someone comes along and tries to buy it from us for an extraordinary amount of money, and then
if you're listening,
yeah, exactly.
So lots has happened in the industry as well, not just in Noisy Little Monkey in the last year. What's been kind of like the big standout things that you've seen emerging or changing in the industry that you're either adopting or working on avoiding? What's been going on?
I guess the big standout changes for us have been around people, in that good people are even harder to find. And by harder to find, I obviously mean much more expensive. And also hard to find, but everybody's getting and that's we're paying our guys more as a result, so which is it's a good thing all round. So good people are harder to find, and there is in the market a belief that a freelancer is as good as an agency, and I would say that a lot of the time that is true. Like, freelancers can be as good as an agency depending on the project you put them on.
Yeah.
If you're putting them on a project where it needs lots of people, or lots of, the client needs loads of management, then actually you're starting to you're seeing a lot of diminishing returns. So there's a lot of good freelancers about, and that's kind of muddying the water, I think, during selection process for, agencies and stuff. But equally now, you're seeing a lot of freelancers who are going, oh, I'm not quite as busy as I was post-pandemic.
Yeah, there's a few sides to this, isn't there? So I've noticed and I've seen from other agencies that they're competing against other freelancers for the same pitch. And I think that's fundamentally got some issues going on there. And that's whether the agency should be pitching for it because it's a freelancer type job and that it's come across their desk because someone doesn't know who to give it to as a request for a proposal, or a freelancer believes that they can deliver the scale or the scope that an agency can deliver, which is worrying because that then usually suggests that it's being outsourced to an even further third party, which then, should be worrying. And I always hoped that by this time in the digital maturity of digital marketing, that the people who spend the money would be a little bit more aware of what the value of the money they're spending is, but it still hasn't quite gone through. Even at enterprise level, you see these sorts of things. One thing I have noticed, and I don't know whether you've seen this, but around COVID time, when lots of people were being put on furlough and they were spending a lot of time outside of work, they started spinning up their own little freelance side hustle stuff, and that was great. They made a few quid. They thought, I'm good enough, I'm going to go it alone. Left agency, went freelance. 18 months, 2 years later, they're now going back into agency, more or less where they left.
Yeah.
But at a slightly higher price because the fees have gone up for most roles. But the worry I've got for those sorts of people is that they've had a taste of freedom, so they'll be harder to lead because they've got their own ways of doing things, which they've had to adopt in order to run a freelance career.
Yeah, I think that's probably legitimate. I don't think we've ever employed someone who's. Oh no, we have actually. Yeah, employed an ex-freelancer once. They didn't make it past probation, because
Case in point.
Yeah, they were. They were really good at what they did, but you need everybody to be pulling in the same direction. And if someone, so convinced that they're the star player or actually their way is the better way. It might be the better way, but it's just not the better way when you're a big gang of you.
Yeah. Well, there's process that needs to be followed in agencies, not just because it's necessarily the perfect way of doing something. It's because you need to be able to create it repeatably for all clients to make sure everyone gets the same value, everyone gets the same. It's really hard to kind of just have a do SEO process, which is that's all it is, because then it becomes a lot harder for someone leaves to pick up and where they left off, things like that, and it's also quite hard for someone who's set themselves in their own ways to be approached with a challenge that they're not quite emotionally ready to take. So if I came to you with a challenge about how you do something, you'd be quite emotionally stable enough, hopefully, to take on that challenge and go, actually, no, here's why I think this. And you then have a conversation where one of you comes to a conclusion and goes, that other guy's right. And that's a lot harder when you've kind of gone it alone for a little bit. But people have to learn and integrate and change if they want to go, grow. There's this industry won't look like it does now in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, I don't think at all. So with all of the things that are happening in agency, around agency, in the industry, and things like that, how have you grown as a leader in the last year? Because I remember we talked when we talked last year, you were saying that taking a step away from some of the doing bits with the team and leading them more was kind of what you wanted to do. We're not going to mention the other thing because we talked about it 5 times, and I think I put it in all of the tweets. But what's been kind of like your core kind of professional growth over the last year?
But that's funny because actually I think we're at a stage in our lives where stage in the business's life where I'm jumping back in and being much more client services, which I was able to when we had a bigger team who were losing me money. I was able to not do as much work. And headcount. Oh, that's great. And I can't believe that we Nick let me carry on for so long. It's not her fault. but it's just like she's normally really good at spotting that stuff. But so yeah, I think that probably the biggest change for me personally, and Nicola actually, is that we have become much more cold in our decision making, or when I say hot, when I say cold, I don't mean we're deliberately trying to make people sad, but we're actually, rather than being emotional about it, we're going,
yeah,
we have, and this is something that it's looking after number one, which is a lot of agency folk struggle with that, I think, because they enjoy being around other creative people, but actually, if you're not focusing on making sure that there's money in the bank for the next 6 months, and there's money in your personal bank for the next 6 months, a year, and we're going into the potentially even more troubled waters that we're facing. You're already on a rocky stability. You have to focus on how am I going to get paid? Who's paying my mortgage? And then after that, I can worry about other people's mortgages.
Agreed. And I think that you can be emotionally intelligent in your decision making without having to be emotional. And that's a strength. It's hard to do. And I often find that in agency, because things move quickly, or because they're perceived to move quickly, everyone just moves quickly in decisions, and reactionary type things happen, and reactions are usually emotionally led or visceral. Whereas I often say to people, you go slow to go fast. My grandmother used to say, less haste, more speed, Christopher. So basically stop rushing and you'll get there faster. And when you start thinking about, okay, this doesn't have to be decided right now, or this doesn't have to be responded to right now. Let's look at this more objectively. Let's talk about it once we've made a decision. Let's have a separate amount of time, and you can be dispassionate in how you deal with things, but obviously layer in the right emotional intelligence. I think where people find it hard to do, it's one of two things. One, they're constantly in the fight or flight mode style of leadership, which is a lot of agency leaders, sadly, or they're just really good at doing the doing, and they've never really meant to be the leader. And that's really hard to as a conclusion to come to sometimes. But that's when I spoke to an agency leader the other day, and he felt cornered on a one-to-one. Team are fully remote, so you don't get a huge amount of personal time. Felt cornered on a one-to-one and accidentally gave a huge pay rise, like a large one, by accident. Not because they weren't due one, but because in the process of react, just went, oh yeah, this is the amount, rather than like, this is what you're being paid now, and didn't know what the difference would be. And that's made huge problems, because now that person's kind of shouldn't really have been gloating, but did mention it to someone else in the team who was also remote, which then caused a knock-on impact that meant that one large pay rise has now potentially snowballed into several. And all of that was because it was a react right now. Rather than say, hey, I need to have a look at the numbers. I'll come back to you this afternoon, or tomorrow morning, or next week.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference a couple of days if you're paid monthly.
Yeah.
But hey, and I think leadership is not you can learn the principles, but you can be taught to manage. You can't really learn to lead. It's hard. So you've just got to have mechanisms in place to do the stuff that helps you take a step back away from trying to lead. Because, if you slow things down, you then have that less emotional response to something which can seem cold, but actually it isn't. It's just the right way of doing it. That's how other businesses work, real ones. The CEO of Barclays worries when he has to have these conversations. It's or she, I don't know who it is now. Anyway,
they'll do.
But when that person has to make a difficult decision, they make a difficult decision based on the shareholders and the share value, and they layer in how that's going to be perceived personally, but they can't let it drive the decision.
It's what one of the funny things that's come out of. So January was when we we made 5 roles redundant, and which is a significant portion of our team because we're small and perfectly formed. We're even smaller, more perfectly formed now. But actually, for all of January, I was in fight or flight mode.
Okay, imagine.
And of course, the rest of the team were, because they were like, "Well, was that enough?
They look it up.
Are we gonna... Yeah, exactly. And then February still kind of crazy, although I was calm because I almost was in Zen mode. But come March, everybody we said to everybody, look, we need to be really steady about what we do. We were starting to make a few mistakes in January and February, and we actually talked about that. Slow down, have conversations with people, allow yourself time to breathe, and see what happens. And of course, everything's got better, and everybody's lots calmer.
Yeah, and it does take time. It's like ripple effect style. You've got to wait for it to ease off a little bit. So if we were to talk in 12 months' time, season 3, shall we say, and I was to say, John, did you get that thing done? What's the thing that you're going to work on in the next 12 months for the agency?
So it's repositioning us. I'm really glad you said pivoted. I feel like we've taken 8 weeks to not quite get there, so I don't think it pivots fair. I appreciate you pretending that it is.
Remember, 8 weeks is a lot quicker than big organisations, or almost any organisation truly does do a pivot.
I feel like they should pay you a retainer for this kind of stuff, because you just make it feel great.
Fine.
I don't know why more people don't pay you a huge retainer for this kind of.
They do, and they should. And if you're listening to this, you know where to find me.
But yeah, so we will have external and internal messaging absolutely clear on that we're a SEO and a HubSpot consultancy, because our people have been doing consultancy for ages, because we coach and mentor our clients on how they can be better.
Yeah.
Yet we're still perceived as, once we've done that, they go, oh, and then let's have all of the low stuff off of you, please. And none of our guys like doing that, which is why we don't have that anymore. So the weird thing is we'll always be an agency, because that's the kind of service, the kind of space we're in.
Yeah.
So I think people will know that we are primarily HubSpot agency, a consultancy, excuse me, with who can drive traffic for SEO through SEO. And what I was thinking is, maybe, I don't know, this sounds a bit BS, but maybe we'll be positioned as a SEO and sales enablement consultancy. But that sounds a bit, I'm not going to swear, but it sounds a bit crappy.
Yeah. I can't, it's hard, obviously, when you're having these kinds of conversations. I always fall back to a confused mind doesn't buy. So if they don't get it in a single sentence, then it's not right.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So we won't be that.
So in 12 months, we'll be talking about the right positioning for the right audience with the right message. And I think that's a really good target. I mean, it's a good amount of time to get it done properly as well. And it is a big thing, because it makes or breaks many businesses. Yeah.
And the joy of it is we've still got incoming leads, because we've got a reputation, and we've got obviously we're an SEO agency, so we've got lots of traffic coming from organic, which converts into leads. So we're still getting leads, we're still getting inquiries. So there's not too much, and they're coming in for the same stuff as they always do, which is SEO and HubSpot. We've got some breathing room, and because, as I said last time, I think because my wife is a brilliant managing director, we have lots of money in the bank.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
You need a good one of them, and a lot of that. So thank you so much for coming on a second time, John. Hopefully we'll speak before the year's out, but definitely want to talk, see how you got on with that next year, for everyone listening in season 3. So thanks very much.
That'd be great. Thanks so much for having me, Chris.
Thank you. In our next episode, we'll be revisiting another agency leader to see how their last year's been. So thanks very much for listening, everybody.